Hello internets, I'm HamsterBomb and you guys are joining me for another Magic the Gathering show and tell thing that I don't really have a good name for. So we've already seen two of the Elder Dragon Highlander decks I have put together, and as it's more commonly known today as just Commander, I am going to show you off another one of them that I built. In this one, I want to start off by showing a little perler that I put together for this to build a command zone for this commander. Now, as I'd mentioned the last two, I put like the most used color I have in the deck in the center, and the others like kind of spread out on the side. As you can see, this is a Tamer deck, I believe it's called, and in the background, I put a Zendikar Hedron and some like Eldrazi tentacles coming out from the sides and the back. Hopefully it's kind of clear what I was going for there. Mostly because the theme of this deck that I'm going to show you is big, scary creatures and getting them out really fast and cheaply, which is something that I've really loved about Magic. The Zendikar block was one of my favorites back. I remember when I was playing this with friends in high school, and I was really up to that point just kind of playing to play with them, but it was this block with the big Eldrazi creatures where I was suddenly like really hooked into building my own stuff for myself, and it's kind of like a special one, so I wanted to make sure I had a deck that was all about that. And the perfect commander for such is Animar, Soul of Elements. This is a big shiny card back when they actually made these cool things for you to get in your commander boxes. This actually came from that first initial one that I mentioned from the last video. Kim and I both got a box, and she's still using Kalia, and I'm still using Animar. Though, Ridley, I actually got it for the dragon inside. I was collecting dragon cards at the time, as I mentioned in the first video. And this one, I actually didn't really, I thought it was a really cool ability, but the actual card I didn't come to think was really great in Commander until I really thought of it. Like, the deck this came with didn't help him at all. So build around him, and all of a sudden it is super fun. So basically one of each of the three commander colors, which is probably one of the best costs for a commander that you can get, is just like give me the colors and no extras, and boom, I just want the creature. So Animar, Soul of Elements, is a legendary elemental 1/1, but with protection from white and from black, which I believe almost all of my other decks have, if not two of those, they at least have one. So this does wonders playing against the old stuff that I have built. Whenever you cast a creature spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Animar, Soul of Elements, and creature spells you cast cost one less to cast for each +1/+1 counter on Animar. The whole idea of the deck is get this guy on the field ASAP, and then as soon as he sits there, either protect him or get as many counters on him as possible to bring big creatures out. So those three big things, and that's really all we're gonna be focusing on, is those three big things. Now, of course, I do have the regular sized card. I just wanted to make sure we saw a big shiny guy before we moved on to the deck itself. Since he's a 3-drop, let's just kind of put him down here for now. First one at the top is Artisan of Kozilek. A lot of the cards in this deck are gonna be from those older blocks that I really had a lot of fun with. Regardless of how rare they are or expensive, I don't really know, honestly. I just liked what they were at the time because I got a lot of these out of packs. And this is a really good card for generic mana. So this is one of those big creatures that if Animar gets up high enough, at least like 9 counters, this thing's free. And the Artisan of Kozilek, aside from being a giant chunky 10/9 with Annihilator 2, Annihilator being one of the most overpowered abilities they've ever done, if not the most. When you cast Artisan of Kozilek, you may return a target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Now, that doesn't count as casting them for Animar. You actually have to cast a creature for it to work for them. So at least you're getting this one, but by this point in the game, if Animar's got 9, I don't need more than that anyway. So awesome big creature. Next card we got here is Scale the Heights. This is actually, I think they returned to Zendikar, weirdly enough, so I definitely grabbed a couple packs from that. And this is a nicely costed card that's just a sorcery. It says put a +1/+1 counter on up to 1 target creature. You gain 2 life. You may play an additional land this turn. Draw a card. 4 really, really nice generic things that, since it's actually really helpful in Animar, 2 of those, the most important ones on there, are put a +1/+1 counter, obviously, for Animar, and draw a card. Later in the game, drawing cards is the most important with this, because if Animar is making things come out for free, I need some way to replace stuff in my hand, and this is just a great way to kind of do both at the same time. And it's a common. I want to point out, like, don't be afraid of putting commons in your deck, and actually this is a perfect another example. This is Ulamog's Crusher from the old Eldrazi set. So this is another great common card that I think people shouldn't be ignoring commons for their commander decks. Honestly, I don't really play a lot of competitive competitive ones, as I've mentioned, so I don't know if this is actually any good. But yeah, there's expensive alternatives that would just be a flat out better version of Ulamog's Crusher, but hey, this was one of the first cards I drew in that old set, and I thought, this thing's amazing. But of course, getting to 8 mana to regularly cast him is a pain in the butt. Doing it with Animar, however, this is much, much better. 8/8 Annihilator 2, once again, Annihilator is just so overpowered. It basically forces your opponent before they block to destroy however many permanents from their side of the field based on the Annihilator number. And that's before blocking, and Ulamog's Crusher attacks each turn if able. Yeah, right, like that's a downside. I'm just gonna make this pile over here just ginormous things, because we don't have enough room to actually lay all the cards out. Next off the top, we've got a mountain, look at that! Then we win a Terramorphic Expense. Actually, what was that one from, like Time Spiral? I'm telling you, I have been playing for a while, but I never really put big things together like this. Oh man, I got this amazing card recently that would make a great Hydra commander, but I don't have the money to fill it out, and that kind of stinks, because I actually collected a bunch of Hydra stuff too, and this is a really great one for Animar, because it only requires, as far as I'm concerned, 1 green to play this. Protean Hydra enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. If damage would be dealt to Protean Hydra, prevent that damage and remove that many +1/+1 counters instead. Whenever a +1/+1 counter is removed from the Hydra, you put 2 +1/+1 counters on at the beginning of the next step. Kind of think of like that old Hercules film is actually what I think of. Like, if you try attacking the heads, 2 more come in its place, and it just keeps growing and growing, you gotta kill it in one shot. So the best way to play this thing isn't to bring it out really small and kind of hope that you can get it bigger. It's to use Animar and hold off as long as you can, make it enormous, and then it's a huge threat. And you basically paid nothing to cast it. And next we've got one of the rare cards I actually bought for this deck. This I found by reading EDH Rec online. It's a great resource actually for just learning about what other people found for decks that work with these. Normally I would say like I want to be able to deck build myself, but the thing is there's way too many Magic cards nowadays. Not like it was back in the day when I was just getting into it. And holy cow, if someone will go through thousands and thousands of cards just to find combinations of things that actually just synergize well with my commander and I could save some time and money on it, yeah, I'm doing that. So anyway, Soul Harvest is 4 green. I really should just be reading it. If it's a creature, I should just read the colors, because that's the only thing Animar doesn't prevent. So a green for a trample 6/6. Whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may draw a card. Like I mentioned, card draw is super important in this. Oh, I love this card so much. I know it's technically banned in Commander, and this was the one I was referencing in the last video when I said something about a banned card that is going to be in my next deck. I'm sorry, this is one of my favorite cards ever. I have the pre-release version of Foil Emrakul, the Aeon's Torn, and this was just the coolest thing. It was the biggest, baddest, and kind of still is, creature that you can cast in the entire game, and it makes me so happy. It's so cool, just the creature design. I love this thing so much, I do. So honestly, I'm pretty sure it, once again, like I mentioned last time, it's banned because if you were playing it as your commander, it kind of changes the whole game, and it's really just about getting Emrakul out as fast as you can. The whole deck's just full of mana, and that's not fun to play, and I see why they don't want that, but I see it as completely harmless, and if I can play it normally in a deck of my 99, then it really should be perfectly fine. But that's my opinion. What do you think? Blah, 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 blah. Emrakul the Aeon's Torn cannot be countered, and when you cast Emrakul, take an extra turn after this one, flying protection from colored spells, Annihilator 6, and when it's put into a graveyard from anywhere, you basically can't deck out and you shuffle that bad boy back into your library. That is so powerful. Also, it is all colorless, so if I can get Animar to 15, boom, I have at the very least an extra turn and a flying 15/15 Annihilator 6 that will be attacking, because if it comes out, it's effectively Flash, right? If you get an extra turn after this one, it's gonna come out, and the next turn it's gonna swing at you, and 6 of your permanents are gone. It's busted. But I mean, honestly, it's got one of the highest price tags ever. Well, mana cost. I don't. Oh, I'm kind of scared to know what this actually physically costs. Let's just move on before I feel like I'm gonna break or bend the thing. Next, we have Vivid Grove, another one of those awesome lands that just comes in with charge counters and lets you pick whatever colors you need. These are really important because the early game of this deck is try to get red, green, blue as fast as possible. Oh yeah, this is another deck I just kind of had in my binder. This is the Nimbus Swimmer, so X and green, blue for a flying, enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. So it doesn't do like the Protean Hydra thing or anything funny with the counters. It really just comes in with counters, and I can take advantage of however big Animar happens to be at the moment and make another big creature out of it for basically just 2 mana. I'm going to count that as 2 mana because honestly I don't think I've ever actually paid for anything in the colorless myself, but I'm sure it might happen eventually. This is another one that I actually found online. So 3 and a green, I'm sorry, it's a creature. 1 green for whenever a player casts a spell, you may put a +1/+1 counter on Forgotten Ancient. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may move any number of +1/+1 counters from Forgotten Ancient onto other creatures. They're going on Animar, obviously. So now it's not just creatures entering the battlefield from you casting them to make Animar bigger. This guy out, all of a sudden, whenever anyone casts anything, Animar is just getting bigger. So it just makes my big creatures, especially the X-costed ones, even bigger, even faster. Next one, oh wow, they're actually like next to each other. I swear I did not buy a lot of individual cards specifically for this deck, but we're kind of running into them all back to back. Primordial Sage, it is green. Whenever you cast a creature spell, you may draw a card for a 4/5. Probably not even going to attack with it, honestly, because it's not worth risking losing basically that. It really could have just been an enchantment, but since I get that huge benefit of once Animar gets 4 counters on him, which is very easy in this deck, then yeah, because there's actually a lot of cards in here that we haven't seen yet that are all about giving Animar extra counters for other reasons. We'll get there when we get there. Sapphire Drake is another good one, that just because I was going through my old cards and saying, hey, who's a high-costed mana card that mostly has colorless? I'm telling you, if I had a lot of money, this deck would probably be way stronger, but even as it sits right now, lately, it tends to win when played against the others. It's very strong. So anyway, for 1 blue, a flying 4/4. Each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it has flying. And that's why a lot of the deck is also like a +1/+1 counter deck. You saw like I have the X-costed creatures that come out with +1/+1 counters and some of the others that were like that as well. This is really, really strong, especially when playing against a lot of, the other decks that I have that makes things fly. The mana curve in this deck's gonna look absolutely nuts, but I mean, just gotta bear with me here once again because I promise it works. It's just because of Animar's ability. Simic Signet is this 2 colorless for one of those mana fixer things, which I should mention really quickly. The name of the deck, I didn't even get to this again. I was gonna do a big screw up like I did on my first time. I call this one Manamar, just because Animar, it's all about using him to exploit free mana. It's probably not original, but hey, I thought of it myself, and I'm sure other people online have already done the same thing. Anyway, Riku of 2 Reflections. This was actually one of the options for the commander of choice for that deck that it came with all those years ago, 2011. So Riku of 2 Reflections, he's basically a green, blue, and a red. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you may pay blue-red. If you do copy that spell, you may choose new targets for the copy. That doesn't happen often in this deck. As you can tell, it's mostly about creatures and enchantments and trying to get bigger faster. But whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay green-blue. If you do put a token that's a copy of that creature onto the battlefield, that is not casting them twice once again. That is just like giving me another. But even still, if I'm subverting like my X costs or the huge parts of the cards that make them expensive, which tends to be the colorless parts, that's very easy to do. So that's like, this guy working with Animar is like the only way to make him useful. He seems like a generic catch-all kind of thing that's like a jack of all trades and a master of none. It's still like neat enough that I keep in the deck. Next one we win is Esperzoa? I don't know, man. I'm digging through my old stuff. So basically 1 blue for a flying. At the beginning of your upkeep, return an artifact you control to its owner's hand. It is a 4/3. I don't care about that. This thing, I was going through my cards trying to find cool stuff for my Animar deck, and I just read this like, hold on, this is brilliant. So for 1 blue, each turn, if I just keep paying 1 blue, free counter on Animar, because I choose at the beginning of my upkeep, return Esperzoa, cast it again, 1 blue, counter on Animar. It just builds these up, and it's probably gonna be 1 blue too, even if I'm trying to pay for it early on, because 2 colorless is not much. Like, this is a really, really good card for this deck, and I don't even think anybody's playing this one. So that's the kind of stuff, like, I don't want to look up online and just get all the card ideas from the internet. Just kind of look through your own stuff. You're probably gonna find interesting combinations that nobody's ever thought of before. Anyway, really cool forest that I got from an unset, by the way. This next one, oh wow, look at that. Okay, here's the island from the same set. The foil versions of these are in the Dragon deck, by the way, because that's full on Wooburg. Beast Whisperer. I think this is another one I actually got from online. We're finding all of these like at the very top of the deck for some reason. So basically, green, whenever you cast a creature spell, draw a card. The whole reason I tried to hunt these down was because I needed card draw more than anything in this, and as you noticed, the ones I've said that I had to hunt down and buy were the ones that effectively just say that, but they're a creature and they come out cheaper because of it. So it's just like easy include. Next one we got is Archetype of Imagination. It's a creature, so blue. Creatures you control have flying, and creatures your opponents control lose flying and cannot have or gain flying. 3/2. I don't care about the 3/2. If you let any of these creatures on my side have flying and nobody else is allowed to have flying, you basically just said my entire party is unblockable. Unless there's something like Reach. Reach kind of gets around this, but that's kind of it. So really cool. I've never really gotten this to work with Animar, but this is another old card I've just kind of had forever and just said, hey, that actually works really well with him. Da-da-da-dum. What do we win next? Ooh, yeah, Venomous Gearhulk. So I think this is the first time we're actually seeing this symbol in here. I have a funny story about this. So I actually didn't buy this deck. I tried pre-ordering a zombie deck that they made because I was excited. I wanted to play zombies for God, ever since I started playing Magic, and I never had the cards to do it, and they finally made an awesome commander deck for it. But I pre-ordered the commander deck on Amazon. They sent me the wrong deck. It was Coven counters that they sent me, and after enough arguing through Amazon saying like, hey, I pre-ordered this thing, and now its price has actually gone up. Don't tell me I have to like give me a refund, make me buy the other thing. You lost me money. You made this mistake. So they were like, okay, fine. They actually just sent me the deck that I actually paid for, and I just took the other one apart. Like, okay, well, let's see if there's anything cool in here. And it turns out, since it was Coven counters, I took out all the cards about Coven and said, hey, Animar is looking at all those counter ones like, that's yummy. So Venomous Gearhulk, sorry for that long story, is a green trample 4/4. When it enters the battlefield, distribute 4 +1/+1 counters among any number of target creatures you control. Yep, so this puppy comes out. If Animar is at 3, all of a sudden he gets another 5 if I get 2 green. That's so good! I have really no idea what else other people are playing with their Animar decks, because I've actually heard Animar, as well as Kalia, like last time, is just one of those cards that for some reason, like, people are actually still playing commander decks with these, which makes me happy, because, like, this is one of my old favorites. Speaking of old favorites, this is from Shadowmoor. Mossbridge Troll. 4 green. Let's just say, if Mossbridge Troll would be destroyed, regenerate it. Tap any number of untapped creatures you control other than Mossbridge Troll with total power of 10 or greater. Mossbridge Troll gets +20 until end of turn. That is really easy to do, and typically I can just tap Animar himself because I feel a little safer of him not actually swinging for the kill, because, you know, it's kind of easier to kill him that way. But this guy can't be killed, and all of a sudden I make a 25/25 that it's regenerated no matter what. Actually, quick question, if any of you guys know, is there actually a difference in terms of the language of Magic of saying if blank would be destroyed, regenerated, versus indestructible? I don't know if it's really the same thing but more steps, but I know you technically are doing something different. That might be a different interaction when you're like, okay, well now it's regenerated, it comes back onto the field, so I'm gonna try and kill it again. I don't know. Let me know if there's any interaction you can think of where that would actually not work, or like not be exactly the same, you know what I mean? Yeah, kind of running out of room over there. But next one we got here, is the Forgotten Cave. This one enters taps to add a mountain. So yeah, that's kind of sucky, but honestly, this is here because, as you can tell in this deck, I need to get my 3 colors right away, and later in the game, drawing basically a mountain is the worst thing I can possibly draw. I want to draw big creatures constantly, so that's why cycling is in here. If I already have my red, I could basically just discard the thing and get a new card in my hand, because 1 red doesn't hurt me at all. So this is, even though this is like kind of a crappy card, it's great in this deck. In my opinion, I don't know, I might suck at this game. Here's a nice pretty mountain instead. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-bum. What do we win here? Ooh, another one of those big honking creatures that actually came from, I think this actually was a relic of that old deck. It's got the same symbol, and those are the mana colors right there. So, Simic Sky Swallower for a green and a blue. Flying Trample Shroud 6/6. It's just good. It's just big and good, and it's gonna hit you hard. Swing! We got a Nantucket Cultivator for 1 green. Nantuku Cultivator comes into play. You may discard any number of land cards from your hand, put that many +1/+1 counters on Nantuku Cultivator, and draw that many cards. Like I was just saying about that cycling thing, later in the game, I want to throw my mana away in exchange of getting new big creatures, because my mana is already sitting on the field. And as long as I have Teamer down there on, like, actually on my field, I don't need regular lands in my hand, so this is actually a great way to one-buff a creature who are going to just, you know, come out, start attacking. He's going to make Animar a little bit bigger, but then let me cast a bunch of other things, potentially making the single play of just casting that one creature a lot better. When, like, in isolation, that card's terrible, once again. A growth spiral. This really just has pretty art and I wanted to play it. So a green and a blue for an instant. So there's some rare ones in here. Draw a card, you may put a land from your hand onto the battlefield. I just think it's efficient for how cheap it is, honestly. Because if I'm starting the game out early, typically the red is the one that I have the least of. So these two colors being the ones to play it, this is like trying to early game get me to play something before Animar, just in case I haven't actually gotten to that point yet. Ba-bum! Next one we win here is also from the Coven Counters deck, Death's Presence, and it is an enchantment, unfortunately, meaning I have to pay all of the 5 and a green to do it. Whenever a creature you control dies, put X +1/+1 counters on target creature you control, where X is the power of the creature that died. So it is so important that I even have to pay all of that, because imagine what happens now if you kill Animar. Animar moves all of his counters to someone else that I've got, and then all I've got to do on my turn, assuming you didn't kill all of my creatures, I just have to recast Animar and suicide the creature who just got huge and put it all on Animar, and Animar technically got bigger from that interaction. So yeah, wasn't even intended for that too. So I'm really glad, like, it's really fun finding stuff like this instead of just looking them all up on the internet. So sometimes I will, just for the sake of inspiration and trying to find some stuff that's cheap, you know, like I want to make sure I can afford this too. Like this one, it was a nice cheap uncommon. Actually, I think I just had this guy like laying around at one point and I must have lost the card, so I had to buy another one, unfortunately. But anyway, Muldrifter, 1 blue for a flying 2/2. Muldrifter enters the battlefield, draw 2 cards. It's really just efficient, especially in an Animar deck. It's 1 blue, draw 2 cards. I get a creature for a flying 2/2, and Animar gets bigger. It's also got an evoke cost, but honestly, who cares about that? I can pay the 4. Who cares? Ba-bum. We win a Rhythm of the Hunt. Got this back in, what was that, Ravnica or something like that? Anyway, it's an enchantment, so I'm paying it all, but it's really easy. 1 red and a green. Creature spells you control cannot be countered, and non-token creatures you control have Riot. They either enter the battlefield with your choice of a +1/+1 counter or haste. Obviously, Animar's picking the +1/+1 counter. The other ones that have counters are picking that as well. Sometimes I will do haste. Usually if I can like get an Eldrazi out with Annihilator really quick, then I will do it, but almost always I'm picking the +1/+1 counter. This is just really cool. Stomping Grounds, another one of those lands. Actually, it's another one of the Ravnica ones. Enters, you pay 2 life. If you don't, enters tapped or something like that. It's pretty good. Next one we got, oh my god, guys, it's him. Look, the like 2 people on the internet who remember I opened a booster box with, was that Matt at the time? Yeah, I think so. And we live streamed the thing, I think, and yeah, we found like several, oh yeah, it was Throne of Eldraine, it must have been. Grumgully the Generous, the stupidest card, like, I don't know, we were doing this, Grumgully, just so generous. And I couldn't believe, like, we made such a meme out of it, that he actually works really, really well in the Animar deck. So effectively, red-green for a 3/3 legendary goblin. Each other non-human creature you control enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. In a deck about +1/+1 counters where I don't have any humans and those colors, Drumgully, you are so generous. What do we do next? Evolving Wilds. It's Terramorphic Expanse, but with the serial number filed off. Next, we've got a Forest, tall and pretty. And then we've got a next real card here. Surok Dragonclaw, 2 and a Teamer. Flash, this spell cannot be countered. Creature spells you control cannot be countered. Other creatures you control have Trample. This was another one that was actually kind of cheap, and I just bought it individually online, found a nice single for this, and it looks like it's really just gonna help the deck. I don't think I've gotten to play this one yet, though. Put 100 cards in one deck, and it takes a long time to actually play them all once. What do we win next? We've got a Lifecrafter's Bestiary. At the beginning of your upkeep, scry 1. Whenever you cast a creature spell, you may pay green. If you do, draw a card. Anything that says that, I'm telling you, it's super helpful. And I'm not even seeing anybody online play this. Like I said, that symbol, it's from that deck that I got for free and just took apart and realized, like, hey, there's a lot of pieces in here that are really helpful. The deck itself, I even played that deck too, by the way, just for reference, the Coven Counter, just to see, like, was it any good? No, it wasn't. Not at all. And it's got a bunch of great pieces, but it just didn't synergize well. Ketria Crystal, this is a great one if I've gotten to this part in the game and, like, say I already have 3 mana, but I still don't have all 3 colors. I'm freaking out at that point. So this is something that really helps me color fix it. And of course, I can cycle if I already have those and just don't care and just want the creatures. Next here, man, I'm telling you, if I had the money, this would have been the Godzilla version of this card, but no, it's not. Illuna, Apex of Wishes. This was, what was the Godzilla creature? It's King Ghidorah, I think. So basically for a teamer, you get a legendary beast elemental dinosaur, 6/6, with mutate. I'm telling you right now, I'm not gonna really play mutate, I don't think. Flying trample, whenever this creature mutates, oh, I'm sorry, I am. I completely forget. I don't think I've gotten to actually play this one either. I just really wanted it because it was King Ghidorah. But anyway, whenever this creature mutates, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land permanent card, put the card onto the battlefield into your hand. I'm reading too fast. So it's kind of Cascade, and that's really what I wanted out of this thing. It's effectively Cascade in the deck again, but I get a 6/6 flying trample for 3 mana. That's really good. Though, now that I look at this, I wonder, like, if mutate, does that actually, as you cast this spell, I wonder if that counts for Animar. You know, like, does Animar get a discount for the mutate? Because that's still casting the card. I don't know. Any judges out there, let me know. I'm just now thinking of that. I have no idea. Boom. Next one we win is, ooh, look at this. This I actually got for the pre-release event for, oh gosh, whatever that set is, the big dinosaur monster things, whatever that guy was from, we just saw in the last one. But yeah, I got this pretty cool Ketria Triome, and you basically enters the bad boy, and it's tapped and gives you one of each of those colors, but it can also cycle, so it's technically better than those regular Tri-lands. Next one we got here is Shamanic Revelations, another one that came from the Coven Counters deck. It is a sorcery though, so I have to pay all of the mana. 3 in green, draw a card for each creature you control, and Ferocious, you gain 4 life for each creature you control with power 4 or greater. Don't really care so much about the life gain, honestly. It's probably going to trigger a lot anyway, so I'm probably going to at least get like 12 out of that each time I try and cast that normally, but it's really here for drawing a card for each creature I control, because I'm going to be having a ton of creatures on the field anyway. Next one, we win. Oh, this was another one that I had to grab online, because I was like, this is perfect for this deck. So, basically for just a green, I get a 2/1 Human Shaman. Well, Human Shaman, you would not get help from Grumgully. You can tap to add green, blue, or red to your mana pool. It can morph, which you can actually, I think that's actually better to do, because if you pay morph instead of this 1 and a green, Animar can bring it out for free, but then I'll have to pay a regular 3 to flip it. Animar does not discount this one, I do know that. When Ravenclaw, or Rattleclaw Mystic, friggin' Harry Potter, Rattleclaw Mystic is turned face up, add Teamer to your mana pool. That is awesome, because this is the stuff that Animar cannot pay, so if I get that for free, the biggest creatures are coming out so quick. Swing! Next we have Obsidian Obelisk. 2 colorless, enters tapped, adds 1 colorless, or add 1 mana of any color, spend this only to cast a multicolored spell. Now there is a ton of those in there, and honestly I don't really need the colors as much, so that's perfectly fine with me. But honestly, the fact that I can still cast multicolor stuff if I'm in trouble, on my second turn, this can prepare me to cast Animar immediately. So that's awesome. I don't care if it enters tapped, because on turn 2, I really just want to make sure that on turn 3, Animar's coming out. So this helps a lot. This one, Frontier Bivouac. One of the most fun cards to pronounce. And also a great 3-color land, even though that other one, like I mentioned, with cycling is flat out better. Anyway, Conduit of Ruin is a free Eldrazi 5/5. When you cast Conduit of Ruin, you may search your library for a colorless creature card with converted mana cost 7 or greater, reveal it, then shuffle your library and put that card on top of it. The first creature spell you cast each turn costs 2 colorless, less to cast. Not only is he helping Animar in the future for making all my colorless stuff just super cheap, actually it's just first creature, so oh my goodness. But yeah, obviously I'm gonna search out Emrakul and put that puppy on the top, because 1, it's my favorite card ever, and plus it's the biggest thing I can get for that anyway, so oh my god, he's good. Best cards in Magic are free, right? Speaking of free cards, yeah, your basic lands should be free. I don't know, I feel like Magic needs to print a heck of a lot more cards just so the game's more accessible. Oh, this is actually a foil forest. I'd rather the embellished fancy stuff be what costs money, but the game pieces, I don't know, personally I feel like they should be printing way more of their cards so it's more accessible. That's me, let's not get into that right now, maybe another video. Somberwild Sage is 1 green for a 0/1 human druid, also cannot be buffed by Grumgully, but I don't care. Tap, add 3 mana of any 1 color to your mana pool, spend this mana only to cast creature spells. I don't even care what color they are, thank you, that is so helpful. Probably gonna be green though. We're gonna fill up on the 3s here, so I'm gonna scoot Animar over a bit. Next one, we've got, oh, look at that pretty forest, man, Zendikar. I freaking love Zendikar. Next one, Blessings of Nature. This is another really weird miracle card, and I think it is awesome. So, it is a sorcery. Unfortunately, I do have to pay the hard way if I don't get the miracle cost. So basically, 4 and a green, distribute 4 +1/+1 counters among any number of target creatures. Versus its miracle cost, if I drew it that turn, I can cast this sucker for 1 green. That is so good late in the game. Like, as long as this is not in my opening hand, and even if it is, this is not a bad thing to hold on to, it's just kind of pricey. So, putting 4 counters, obviously all on Animar, it's like a mana investment to make sure that I can keep casting stuff. So even at this, it's good. At this, it is busted good. Next one we got is a nice little shiny I got from that Throne of Eldraine set. I can speak. Castle Garenbrig enters the battlefield tapped unless you control the forest, and then does some other stuff. But effectively, that one down there, aside from it giving me a regular forest, you can pay basically 4 and tap and add 6 of your forest back in. Spend this mana only to cast creature spells or activate abilities of creatures. So if you're using a land to activate it and you're paying 4, so you're effectively paying what would be 5 mana to get a gain of 1. It's marginal, but sometimes it has actually made the difference for me. Next one we got, ooh, this is good. Okay, so Memnite, just digging through my old cards. I think this is back from Mirrodin, a 0 colorless creature, 1/1. Now, if Animar just comes out and I have this thing in my hand, it comes out immediately. This thing is so outstanding. Or if I have like the Esper Zoa card on the field, this suddenly outclasses it. Esper Zoa was the one that I have to bounce an artifact back to my hand. This is the one to pick, because now I don't even have to cast that blue every turn. Memnite can do it all by itself. I'm gonna put this in the 1 cast, because it can't even go lower than that, but a lot of these creature cards are already a 1 cast, and the fact that I'm even trying to lay it out like it's a mana curve is, as you can tell, it's already kind of busted and stupid. Rugged Highlands, another one that gains life, gets a couple mana colors. Inkwell Leviathan, I've had this thing forever. What was that, Conflux or something? I don't even remember that. 7 and blue, I'm sorry, blue for an Island Walk, Trample Shroud 7/11. It's just a giant titan that I can cast for basically nothing. What did we win here? Another one of these Mirrodin land things. Enters battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or fewer other lands, which gives me a red or a green. This is great. Great for casting Animar. Ooh, this one. Actually, this is funny. So, we were at a game store digging through like their, I don't know if it was like a dime box, like everything in the box is like a dime or something like that, or maybe it even was a nickel. It was super cheap. But Kim found this, and she was like, oh, it's like a lionfish mermaid. And she was like painting mermaids at the time, and just a hobby of hers, and she really loves mermaids. So she actually picked this up. And I was going through all of our cards later, like years later, trying to put it together, this Animar deck, and I went, oh my gosh, this is actually perfect. This is awesome. I'm like, can I play this? And she was like, good, I'm glad someone can use it. It would be a green-blue for a legendary merfolk wizard, 4/4. When Zagana Utopian Seeker, sorry, it's the first time I've actually said her name out loud, enters the battlefield. If you control another creature with a +1/+1 counter on it, draw a card, which of course is going to happen. And then for 4 green-blue, adapt 4. If this creature has no +1/+1 counters on it, plus 4 counters on it, each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it has trample. The fact that this thing comes out, yes, I'm going to get to draw a card, basically for free with it coming out. It's a 4/4, and all of my +1/+1 beasts, mostly Animar, but all the big ones too, get trample. Like, oh my god. Yeah, and like I said, that card was like a dime. So old cheap stuff, never think that you're treasure hunting through old cheap cards is not worth your time. Iridescent Hornbeetle for 1 green. At the beginning of your end step, create a sorry, I was gonna say a green. A 1/1 green insect creature token for each +1/+1 counter you've put on creatures under your control this turn. Oh my god. There is one card in particular that this won me the game for, because I actually, I'll say it right now, I hate combos. I'll show you later when we get to it, but there is one card in particular that combos infinitely with Animar, and I won a game once because I had an infinite amount of insect creatures. Of course, you have to claim a number, but still, it didn't matter. Just a swarm of bugs. Animar, I'm gonna have to move you over again. Okay, whoa, hold on to it. Okay, there we go. Yes, this is my very pretty Pathrazor of Ulamog. I think this is an uncommon from the old Zendikar set. I've got the original versions, but I just loved this alternate art one that I found somewhere. So for 11, Annihilator 3, I'm sorry, for 0, Annihilator 3, Pathrazor of Ulamog cannot be blocked except by 3 or more creatures. 9/9. So first of all, Annihilator happens first, and then it can't be blocked except by 3 or more creatures. So if they actually decide to try and block, and they've already given this up, I'm killing several creatures in the process. This is like a board wipe for 0 mana in this deck. It's awesome. Whoop. Ooh, look, we're finding the other colors in here. So this is the last one of those tall unlands for the mountains. And of course, I've just got other generic tall lands that are just pretty show-off cards. What do we got next? Cinderglade. It's another one of those enters battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or more basic lands. It's just strong. Palladium Myr is a free 2/2 Myr creature. Tap, add 2 colorless to your mana pool. Yeah, the shenanigans right there. He's free, comes out, and then of course, like in the next turn, I can just start using him for even more what would be counters on Animar just for free mana. This deck is so much fun, I'm telling you. Next, we have, one of my favorite cards in the game. So, back in the day when this Eldrazi stuff was like just first coming out, I actually bought a lot online. I remember how much it was. I was really excited. It was $12, and I got 4 copies of this guy in perfect condition. And their price has since skyrocketed, and I feel kind of bad holding on to the others. Like, I should probably try selling them. But honestly, like, I love, especially like this, like at least having one in Commander so much. I actually had a whole Eldrazi deck that it was bought for. I love the deck so much. Kind of wish I got more Animars though, but still. Anyway, stop gushing over my cards. It's just my favorite cards. It's the show and tell. I want to talk to you about how much I love these cards. So basically for free, because of Animar, when you cast Ulamog the Infinite, destroy target permanent. Annihilator 4, Ulamog is indestructible. When Ulamog is put into a graveyard from anywhere, its owner shuffles his or her graveyard into his or her library, so he cannot be decked out either. So what I did find that was actually kind of sucky with this, I was actually playing in a tournament, really excited with my new Eldrazi deck, and immediately when I cast this guy, like, I got him out on like the 5th turn. He got hit with Pacifism, and I went, oh shoot, I have no way to protect him. And I never learned my lesson. My decks are still all about like just getting big creatures out constantly. I'm such a fool. But it's fun playing it like this way, especially when you know that the other deck you're playing isn't gonna be like doing all sorts of like feel bad shenanigans. I want like big creatures to smash into each other for Magic. Okay, so we got an X and a green legendary tree folk. Kerbis, Harvest Celebrant, enters the battlefield with a number of +1/+1 counters on it equal to the amount of mana spent to cast it. Remove a +1/+1 counter from Kerbis, prevent all damage that would be dealt this turn to another target creature with a +1/+1 counter on it. Hey look, I can actually protect Animar. Now I can't like stop Pacifism, because of course that would stop his ability from triggering, so of course it shuts down the entire deck, but still! Also, it's really nice that he comes out, it's not X for his mana cost, or I'm sorry, for his power toughness down there. If you actually don't have any in X at all, he still comes out as a 2/2, so he's still useful. I guess he goes in the 2 pile. It's kind of hard to figure out like where I'm gonna put these. Next one, we got an island, then, and also this kind of reminds me, I'm really sorry, one of you guys was asking if I could do like a deck list, maybe later. It's just, that's a lot of work to go through and like type all these out and like give it to you guys, because, and like I mentioned, this is something that I'm changing these cards out all the time. There's usually like a few I change out every year, just from playing them, saying like, oh, this isn't working the way I wanted, let me try something else in my collection, dig through my binders, and we'll look through my binders later too. So I'm sorry, I don't really have something that you could replicate it. That's not really what I'm trying to do here. I'm really just kind of like telling stories about these and just showing off new cards maybe you've not seen before, and fun interactions. Triumph of Veracity, 2 fun characters. I love the original Planeswalker 5 set. This is Garrick and Liliana having a very one-sided fight about beating women, actually. So never mind, let's move on from the art. It is an enchantment, so it is 2 and a green for at the beginning of your upkeep, draw a card if you control the creature with the greatest power or tied for the greatest power. Of course it's gonna be me. Next we have It That Betrays. This, oh my gosh, I was so sad I didn't buy this back when it was in the Zendikar set. I just waited like, it's only like a couple dollars, but I mean that's still a lot right now for a card. It's just a piece of cardboard. By the time I finally hunted this thing down, like years later, it of course cost like $12, which I'm very butthurt about that. Individual cards should not cost that much, in my opinion. Anyway, It That Betrays is a free Annihilator 2. Whenever an opponent sacrifices a non-token permanent, basically whenever Annihilator happens, put that card onto the battlefield under your control. 11/11. That is fun, because that is something that, like, really never helped me too much, because I never had, like, a full-on deck that was really taking advantage of Annihilator until now. Darksteel Sentinel, this is another fun Mirrodin card. For free, you gotta remember, it is a flash, vigilance, and indestructible 3/3. So this way I can, like, immediately from your turn, and as long as Animar's got the right counters, I can actually use this as a safe way to block and keep him alive. I feel so silly putting this, like, in the 6 pile. I've never paid mana for these cards. Like, I'm telling you, like, this is pointless. Anyway, Vivid Creek, another one of those great ones that comes out early, lets you pick in color fix if you need to. And there's another blue. I guess it's good that I'm taking this apart so I can shuffle it all over again. And another, there's the last one, the Vivid Crag. It's a color fixing mana. Those are really great. And here we go, Xyrus, the Writhing Storm. For basically Teamer, a flying 3/5. Whenever an opponent draws a card except the first one they draw in each of their draw steps, create a 1/1 green snake creature token. Whenever Xyrus, the Wandering Storm, deals combat damage to a player, you and that player each draw that many cards. So yeah, it's kind of like a cheap way to make them do that. This honestly was just like a really fun, strong card that I was like, hey, this is just a really cool one to put into the Animar deck, honestly. I'm sure there's better stuff for all of these, but this is really just the stuff that I kind of had on me at the time, honestly. What did we win? Oh yeah, this was awesome. So I found a bunch of my old cards that effectively just said, whenever blah 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 enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. And look at that. It's either 2 mana, which it might be at that point in the game. I'm probably going to be playing these first when I have Animar out, or it's just 1 green for a 1/1 creature, literally don't care, because it gives 2 counters to Animar. And like those early counters matter a lot in the game. Seriously, like if you can tell here, if I can't get Animar going, this deck does nothing. Like, it doesn't work at all. But if it does get going and it gets going quickly, all of a sudden, like, I win immediately. Oh, look, it's actually, that was weird. These were back to back. I think I have one more that says this too. And it's effectively the same card. You see this, like, whenever blah, blah, blah enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Same mana cost, same power toughness. I don't know what they're doing over at Wizards, I tell you. Look, a big, pretty mountain. And speaking of the mountains, I think we got to move these. Next, we have, oh, look, a big, pretty forest. Whee! I love this card too. Solemn Simulacrum. This is one that I've just been wanting to pick up for years and finally had a good excuse to, because now I've got a colorless deck, sort of a colorless deck. You know what I mean. That I can actually play it and fully take advantage of this thing for free. Whenever Solemn Simulacrum enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a basic land card, put the card onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle your library. Whenever Solemn Simulacrum dies, you may draw a card. This is a perfect choice for that Esperanza Jellyfish artifact card to bounce stuff back to my hand. Oh my gosh, this is so great. Here's a regular mountain. And then we've got Command Tower, the old generic art too. I don't know why they changed the art for that finally. I guess because everybody had the same card everywhere. Bloodbraid Elf. I don't know if this is great for the deck, but honestly, I don't really care. I just really like the old Cascade ability. Well, you know what? Cascade is actually quite good because it does allow Animar to trigger an additional time, because it does actually make me cast the new card that I draw. I should just read what it says. Bloodbraid Elf is a red-green haste 3/2 Cascade. So Cascade, you basically play the card and you start removing cards from the top of your library from the game until you reveal a non-land card that costs less. You may play it without paying its mana cost and put the removed cards on the bottom in a random order. So yeah, you're basically getting 2 creatures for the price of 1. It does actually have to cost less than this, and typically the creatures I have that cost less. What also does stink, I'm pretty sure if you hit a card that has an X cost, you have to make X 0 or something like that. There was a weird ruling with that. Luckily, it hasn't happened to me yet, but you never know. Bound to happen eventually. And next, oh god, here it is. Ancestral Statue. Luckily, this is a nice cheap card, but it goes infinite with Animar. And I really hate combos in Magic because I know it's clearly not intended in the game. Like, obviously, you wouldn't design your game to do that. These are from different sets. But still, here we go. It's a common common. It is a creature, so it is effectively free. When an ancestral statue enters the battlefield, return a non-land permanent you control to its owner's hand. Now, sure, I could choose a couple of these that would be really useful, but you choose the ancestral statue. I don't even care that it's a 3/4. You send it out, return it to your hand. Send it out, return it to your hand. Send it out, return it to your hand. You keep doing this as many times as you want because Animar is making it free anyway, and Animar is getting bigger and bigger, and then Animar is the size that you want. This, if I get this card, the game's over. Like, I'm telling you, the game is over. And that's kind of why I don't like it too. You know, like it's fine. I feel obligated to have it in there. But anyway, yeah. Hey, look at this. Another whenever blah 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 enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. It's a 1/1 and it costs 1 green. What is it with them in making the same card over and over and over again? Is it just so that I can exploit it and have more in my Animar deck? Lightning Greaves. They're great. I think honestly that's just a way to give Animar Shroud. It has nothing to do with giving haste to anything because I don't even care in this deck. Hey, look, that's an island. I don't know why I had to hold that for so long. Hey, look, here's another island, but this one's sparkly. And we win an Exotic Orchard. Add 1 mana of any color that a land an opponent controls could produce, which happens a lot. You'd be surprised. Especially if we're getting it that quick, too. Mountain Valley enters the battlefield tapped. Search, sacrifice it, yeah, get them in your hand, blah, 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 blah. It's another one of those. Just quickly give me the colors that I need so that I can actually get Animar on the field and start playing the game. Commander Sphere. Add 1 mana of any color to your commander's color identity, or you can sacrifice it to draw a card, which is great because, like I mentioned later in the game, that it's kind of taking precedence over getting more mana. Next up, we have a forest. Boy, this deck needed shuffling. Arcane Signet, another one of those cards I don't really like because it looks like it just goes in everything. Add 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity. We're getting there, we're almost done. We got Inspiring Call. It's an instant for 2 and a green. Draw a card for each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it. Those creatures gain indestructible until the end of turn. So this is a way to protect Animar, but also like make him bigger at the same time. So it's like a nice extra thing to have. It does actually cost mana though, and typically like I want to like obviously get as much use out of that I can on my turns, but still, it's a good thing to save to make sure he's okay. Thornwood Falls. It enters tapped, gain 1 life, get those colors later. And I win a Swarm Shambler. This was actually really cool. I pulled this as a foil rare. It was kind of neat. This guy is 1 green, and it actually is 1 green. Enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it. Whenever a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it becomes the target of a spell an opponent controls, create a 1/1 green insect creature token. And you can pay 1 and tap it to put a +1/+1 counter on him and just keep making him bigger. But still, obviously Animar is the one who is getting this. This is effectively like how I use this in enchantment, that I just pay 1 green to make like an extra rule for Animar, and it makes him even stronger. Whoa, we got a mountain. Beep-a-dee-boo, we got another mountain, but this one shines. Swing. And this one, a Biogenic Upgrade. A lot of these cards are coming from that deck. I'm telling you, that deck that I was so mad about getting ended up actually having a lot of stuff that worked with the deck I was trying to build. Biogenic Upgrade for 4 and 2 green. Unfortunately, it is a sorcery, so distribute 3 +1/+1 counters among 1, 2, or 3 different target creatures, and then double the number of +1/+1 counters on each of those creatures. I usually choose Animar each time. There has been an instance where I've chosen another creature, but usually it's a case-by-case thing. Usually because like Animar, it doesn't matter for him to get any bigger, and by this point in the game, if I'm casting that, I've basically won anyway. Meaning, I will lose before I get to that much mana normally. It's either like I win triumphantly, like with no contest, or I just get dunked on. That's how this deck works. Peregrine Drake for 1 blue, flying. When Peregrine Drake enters the battlefield, untap up to 5 lands. The reason that guy's busted is because I'm not paying the 4 colorless. Typically, you would look at this and be like, okay, it's kind of like a creature for free. No, it's not. It's a creature that gives me my mana back. That's incredible. 2 cards left. We have Steel Hellkite. When I was collecting dragon cards, this one I sacrificed and gave over to here because, hey, it's a free dragon. For a flying 5/5, pay 2, Steel Hellkite gets +1/+0 until the end of turn, and then X, destroy each non-land permanent with a converted mana cost X whose controller was dealt damage by Steel Hellkite this turn. Activate this ability only once each turn. Normally, I don't exactly like get to that point where I'm doing that. This is really just a distraction, like a 5/5 flying dragon that just pops up, and I have the threat of being able to do this. I think I've done it maybe once or twice, but really, like, it's just like, hey, look, really pretty art. Giant dragon that I got for free, and that's scary enough. And the final card is Ruinous Intrusion, an instant, 3 and a green. For exile, target artifact or enchantment, put X+1/+1 counters on target creature you control, where X is the mana value of the permanent exiled this way. Guess who I'm gonna pick? Obviously, I'm just putting that all on Animar. And that's that. So that is the entire Animar deck for you guys. I hope that this was interesting. This is one of the most fun decks that I have to play. I adore like messing around and just like doing really fun, weird interactions that like the game was still intended to do. Like obviously everything I am fairly using the way that Animar was intended to be played, except for that one combo card that I'm kind of a little butthurt existing. But honestly, just to sell that, if it were up to me, I would say like add a new rule to the game. Every time a card has the potential of going infinite, it only resolves one time instead, just to make sure that it's actually being played that it was the way it was supposed to be. But I know that would like destroy basically all modern decks so that you can't win on turn 2 and stuff, but I find that more interesting. I like the game getting to be able to play farther, but that's just me. Anyway, what did you guys think of my really messily put together Animar Soul of Elements deck? Hopefully I got to at least introduce you guys to some new interesting combinations of how to play the game. But still, I've had a lot of fun with this and I really love this deck, so let me know what you think. Thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to like the videos and subscribe for more, and I will see you guys in the next Magic Show and Tell video. Booyah!